Katie Piper, thank you so much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, it's funny, when I get trolled, the insult they give me, which is such a compliment to all my doctors, is like addicted to Botox face. No one knows it's like a burn injury.
Are you ready to find out your biological age?
I don't feel any better about it. I'm still really nervous.
Trauma, marriage,
Mhm.
so more trauma, recovery, kids. Katie Piper, your result is...
I was gonna swear.
Hello, welcome to another delightful or harrowing, who knows, episode of What's My Age Again with me, Katherine Ryan. It's a podcast all about aging, and we're not here to talk about how to keep age at bay on the outside. It's all about what is happening on the inside. And this week, my guest is Katie Piper. After surviving an acid attack in 2008 when she was just 24, Katie has rebuilt her life, beginning with a Channel 4 documentary about her recovery. Since that day, she's become a TV personality. She's written a whole host of books, including her latest memoir, Still Beautiful. And she's been on Strictly and received an OBE. What have you done with your life? According to her passport, Katie's 41. But how old is her body? Katie has very kindly given us some of her blood for a biological age test, and all the results will be revealed later in the episode. And then resident scientist Dr. Nicola Conlon will be able to dig into the data and help us, mortals, to interpret those scientific results. Katie Piper, thank you so much for your beauty, your presence, your time.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Cream sofa, black coffee, kind of nervous.
I know my cream sofa has stains on it, and that's just an indication that they do use it for other podcasts.
Great, okay.
And I look guilty
Yeah,
often, like it's kind of right where I sit, but they're not my stains.
nice, okay.
There are many stains on my life. My biological age is old,
Mhm.
very old. How are you feeling about having yours revealed today?
Well, nervous because I'm kind of a contradiction where
Yeah.
I feel young and think I'm young. Then other people don't view me as young, and I think, oh, maybe I've got the opposite to like lack of confidence. This is like slightly delusional.
What other people are these? Like your children?
No, adults as well. So my kids first off. So my daughter started school,
Mhm.
like a new school this week, and I was asking her about the PE teacher, and I said, "Oh, what's she like? Is she young?" And she was like, "Well, she's not as old as you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, so how old is she?" She was like, like normal, like in their 30s.
Normal.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, it's fine to be old to people you parent because
Yeah.
I get that.
What's more hurtful, though, you go into the school, you pop in, and she's like a 60-year-old butch lesbian
Yeah.
with a softball background, and you're like, what? You're like, yeah, she's young and fresh, 30.
I haven't met her yet though,
No,
so I
okay.
can just pretend in my head she looks older. Um, so yeah, then I did a job not that long ago. It was when we had the heat wave. And it's those days where everything goes well with your hair, you like your outfit.
Yeah.
You feel like if you went missing, people would describe you as young and full of life and
Yeah.
just a really good kind of age day, right? And it was like a corporate talk. And then I came off stage and had to do this little interview of a guy. I think he had like a successful YouTube channel. He was probably like early 20s, so young
A
person.
fetus,
Yeah,
an
right.
influencer.
It went well. And then he put a still image on his main grid. And I loved the image, right? And I commented like, great to meet you. And then all his friends and network who are in their 20s was like, oh, nice. Who's the auntie? Which is obviously like a polite way of saying older woman,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, the whole nation under 30 sees me as like an old woman.
Yeah.
And I feel so young. And my life's a bit of a mixture of some really unhealthy decades and then more recent, healthier times. But I don't know how much that's going to buy me back.
Historically on the podcast, people bounce back.
Okay.
You should be fine based on that alone, but we don't know. We'll get into it. You say you feel young. What
Yeah.
makes you feel young and how young? Like if you had to put an age on your vivacious spirit, would you say you feel 20s? Did you like peak 25 and you're still there 30?
Yeah and no, because I have a weird history of like my life changed at 24. I didn't have 20s. I was hospitalized for most of it.
Right.
But I was an early starter. I did at age 13 and onwards what most people start in their 20s. that God has a plan for everyone. And that's why that was my plan.
When you mean you got started, you were like clubbing, presumably you had a fake ID, you were drinking at 13, you were out.
So I'm from like quite a small, like rural village in Hampshire. So there weren't really clubs. We were more like drinking in the park, cider, getting people to
Yes.
buy us alcohol from a shop, smoking in the park,
Yeah.
pretending to be at someone's house for a sleepover, but all staying out all night and walking around fields till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
That's like kind of very country life.
We have
you
a very
know?
similar background. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started that just a bit later than you, but I felt like it was fortuitous for me as well because I thought all of that stuff was really fun. By the time some of the other girls were unleashed to uni or whatever, they went absolutely crazy. But I'd had my fill. And then I actually got quite serious in my 20s. I started having children in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had this big trauma in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't get into it too much, but obviously you were attacked and then you nearly lost your life. You lost sight in one eye.
Yeah.
And then you started to have rehabilitation and surgeries for that. And that went on from 24 until what time?
Now.
Just ongoing.
Just ongoing. So it was but I would say that's probably not a very healthy time either because lots of like morphine, general anesthetics, loads of like medical problems that I think would put stress on like your liver, your pancreas. But then weirdly, a life of abstaining from anything like bad by choice,
Right.
you know, a lot of bed rest.
Yeah.
And then I started my sort of like domestic family life, had my first baby at 30.
Yeah.
So actually that's old for some people. Maybe not London, but
It's changing, isn't it? I think just recently a study came out that a survey or something that said for the first time ever, there are more pregnant 40 plus women than teen moms.
okay, that's
Like for the first
interesting.
time ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on how rural you are.
Yeah.
But I think overall, 30 is still considered really young.
Yeah. And I tried to have a third baby in my late 30s, early 40s, and it didn't work. So I was like, well, is that an indication of my biological age?
Oh.
Regardless of how I feel, because I'm very energetic. Like I
Yeah.
get up early, I'm full of energy. I don't feel like I feel like mum tired in places in the day, but I can keep going. You
Mhm.
know, so I don't really know. I don't want to like put it out there that I think I'm super young or old.
Well, we will find out.
Yeah.
But you feel young, and that's what counts. So if you could put an age on how you feel, do you feel 13 like still with the same energy that you could be drinking in the fields, getting strangers to buy you alcohol, smoking fags behind the bins? Or do you think 30 when you started having children is like a nice place
Yeah,
to settle?
because actually alcohol's an interesting point because it has changed for me. I can't binge drink like that anymore.
No.
Can't function the next day. So actually that tells me that I'm older. I probably feel like, you know, like you, in my 20s, I was quite serious in my 20s and
Mhm.
had to be quite old before my time, which I did. So maybe I feel like late 20s, early 30s, I think.
Well, you talk a lot in your work, in your advocacy about that shift, this power that you have as a young woman, the sensuality that you have. When this attack happened, you stepped out of the male gaze
Mm-hmm.
at an age where a lot of us are really stepping into it.
Yeah.
And that shifted how you felt about beauty and aging.
Yeah, it was also like the year it happened to me was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an idea of the landscape, Instagram didn't exist. And Facebook was like something you got a laptop out and plugged into the wall and like logged on twice a day to. You know, it
Yeah.
wasn't like smartphones or anything. So that meant like the beauty industry was different as well. So
Mhm.
if you were burnt and facially disfigured back then, there wasn't really that representation or diversity. So it was kind of like, right, you're now not part of this world and it's a different world. Um, and definitely you would never think of somebody who's disabled or disfigured to have a sex life or even dress sexy or even talk about it or even assume they could access that. So it was a very different world, good and bad, actually, because maybe there was less comparison and all socialization being done online and on apps and things.
But I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I didn't have your experience. It would feel isolating, I imagine, to be invisible because at least when it's all in the forefront and people can be horrible about it, they can discuss it, they can judge it, or they could be inspired by it, or they could be, it becomes normalized. At least then it's part of a conversation. But I think the worst feeling would be everyone looking away, this feeling of invisibility
Yeah.
and not having that discourse on social media, I imagine would have been really lonely.
Yeah, there was definitely isolation and loneliness, and you're right. You were invisible in some ways, but then hyper visible in other situations where you didn't want to be, and that something on your face is sort of like never having a day off.
Hmm.
Um, so that was difficult too. Uh, and it's weird because obviously there was a massive message then and now about beauty and youth being the most powerful currency. And in some ways it's true because if you're young, if you're beautiful, you are quite powerful.
Hmm.
Um, but that because I think it's important to be honest and truthful about that and how that feels because I've walked both lives and
Yeah.
I've experienced both. But it's not the kind of power that's long lasting. Like it's such a fragile thing to attach yourself to,
Hmm.
and so dangerous for women that you could suddenly be somebody or something, and then one day that could be taken away from you, and you haven't worked on anything else or established yourself in any other way. Can leave you quite vulnerable to predators and people that want to abuse you and take advantage of it.
Yeah. My mother always called it a depreciating asset,
Yeah, it's like a car.
regardless. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like you can't put all your eggs in that basket.
That's why when I started to write that book, it was a time, I was turning 40 and lots
Hmm.
of journalists were talking to me about it in interviews saying, do you mind if we print your real age? And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening to me now? Like all those kind of 90s sayings of like, what do you choose, your body or your face as you get older? I
Yeah.
was like, my face is gone and now my age is going. Like, what do I actually have left? It was a weird time.
Yeah. But now would you identify still with that trauma? Because I think you would never know now. Like you carry the memories of that. But in terms of like what the world sees, I don't think people would associate you with a crime like that. If anything, I think you look far younger and far more beautiful than obviously you know that what the average is for our age.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I get trolled, like especially if it's people that don't know anything about me. Usually that might be men or especially on TikTok when it's young children.
Yeah.
And the insult they give me, which is such a compliment to all my doctors, is like addicted to Botox, Botox face, obsessed with surgery. And
Yeah.
I think, oh, wow, I now just look like a housewife from Dallas who's like 82, who's had
Yeah,
loads
yeah.
no one knows it's like a burn injury or,
Yeah.
an actual trauma. So it's interesting. I think definitely the things that happen to us, particularly when it's something like trauma or something life changing, it does sort of shape part of us. But I think you're right; it doesn't define everything afterwards,
Yeah.
and it doesn't in my real life, in my personal life.
No. Well, you certainly don't look like an 82-year-old Texas housewife, though
Okay, that's good to
I
know.
know the aesthetic that you mean, and I
Yeah,
like it,
yeah,
and
I
I do
do
find it
too.
aspirational.
Yeah, yeah.
You found Christianity during that time?
Yes, I did.
I
Yeah,
haven't I haven't heard you speak so much about that. What?
yeah. Are you religious or
Mm, I mean, I'm spiritual,
okay?
but I'm not like, do you go to church with your family? Do you?
Did go alone to church for the first few years. And I think, again, it was a little bit of loneliness as
Was
well.
it?
And if I'm really honest, a place where I was pretty sure I won't get rejected. So it felt like a safe place as well. Um, if I could still go to church, I would, but I just know I can't commit. But I do still have my own way of connecting and worshiping, very modern way. I use this app called Lectio 365,
Okay.
and it's like daily prayers twice a day. You
Yeah.
can listen to it, you can read it, and I read lots of books and have my own little lists and things like that. So it's a modern adaptation. Yeah.
And there are so many shapes of families who express religion in their own unique way, and that's really lovely. But you sought it out as a way of having community during a really traumatic time. And then do you view it now as a way to understand the path that your life has taken? Do you feel like it was always the plan?
Yeah, I do. And I think for a lot of people, they may think it's cliche to have like something so awful happen and then
Mhm.
go to religion. And they may say, oh, well, you're vulnerable and the church preys on vulnerable, broken people. Um, And definitely, sure, I wanted to belong to something and find answers, but it's gone way beyond that for me, where this makes me sound so crazy, but I feel God working in my life, talking to me, sending me signs and signals. When I listen to that internal voice that I think's a higher power, things work out for me.
Yeah.
So it's whether other people believe in it or not, it's something it's my go-to and it always works.
Yeah. And they might just call it something different.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like I've got friends of all different religions,
Mhm.
and some people say, well, there can't be all these different gods and different faiths. And I think, well, there's obviously something out there that works for people, and I don't have to put a name on it for other people, but I know what it is for me.
And it's good to have like a healing energy, especially related to the biological age test, especially when you've had a traumatic experience that is, you know, quite extreme, not something that most people would have gone through. That one thing that theoretically causes inflammation and ages you is if that's stored anywhere in your body.
Okay.
So, what steps have you taken? Because you're a very high performance woman now, you're very successful. You've obviously been able to, from the naked eye, like move on from that trauma. But do you think it lives in you?
I don't think the trauma from my burn injury lives in me, but I think I have inflammation from being married and having
Okay, so
children.
new traumas. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, my past was like, what was it, like 17, 18 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And in my initial recovery, I moved back home and all I had to focus on was medical appointments and recovery, which is almost like to a mum of kids and a career now. That's quite luxe almost. Like, can you imagine someone saying to you, just focus on one thing and do it? Like, I couldn't imagine
Damn.
now.
But you were so young. And I do think you would have had to have some type of PTSD, like trauma therapy.
Yeah.
It's not just the medical appointments, it's this
Yeah, and I
feeling
did
like,
everything. I was,
and you did it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
did EDMR, I did CBT, and I allowed myself to stay home. I wasn't ambitious. I didn't go back to work. Like I did stay home, and I led a very basic life, which was probably a good thing at the time.
Okay.
I didn't even have an email address or a phone for like the first 7, 8 months.
And how did you learn to trust men again? Like to meet your husband, who I know was a carpenter, very Christian.
Yeah.
Well done there. Yeah. Like I think I would have trouble dating after that.
Yeah, and I did have trouble dating, but not or just because of trust issues, but because of rejection as well.
Really?
Like single by choice at first, then not by choice towards the end. Um, I think something like when you talk about healing, something that was really healing was all the team that helped me were mainly men.
Okay.
So like surgeons, lawyers, police officers, and they were really good men, like solid men. So I think there's something quite healing about that. And my dad's a really good father, a good partner to my mum.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I'm always like a practical person in like a numbers game of like, well, if 2 men hurt you, but hundreds helped you, I find that quite reassuring.
Okay. So you had a really good foundation at home, good dad, and just logistically, you were like, all these good men around me are
Yeah.
good. And then that's how you attracted a nice man to be your
Yeah, I
husband.
maybe, yeah. And also I was meeting like lots of other people through my charity who had been hurt or harmed in lots of different ways, and it wasn't always men on women based violence. People hurt people for lots of different reasons, and gender isn't always the reason,
Though it is
the highest stat.
overwhelmingly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I do get excited about women dominating in male fields. Every time, like, there's a documentary about a violent woman, I'm always like, look, good for her.
Yeah, well,
Really getting out there.
it was something I went into, and I did a documentary
Yeah.
recently in Louisiana, and it was like, how do we react when women turn violent? Like, how do we feel? Do we punish them more harshly?
Hmm.
Because we put this expectation that if they're anything but nurturing, maternal, and caring, if they're not those things, they're a monster. Because it took me so long to meet someone, I became the man that I always wanted to date when I was younger.
Hmm.
And I think that made me feel safer because in the past where I've been exploited by guys, it's through being the underdog, through them having something I can't access or I need, or them helping me function in a way I couldn't function without them. I became like so well-rounded in my existence. And when I met my husband, I was a homeowner, I was independent. My
Mm-hmm.
job didn't rely on a guy, or none of my existence did. So it was just this kind of hobby to
Yeah.
like date someone, So maybe that made me feel safer. I don't
Yes.
know.
Well, I certainly advocate men as hobbies. And you say that your marriage and your children might be causing you aging and inflammation now?
Slow death, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, you're very busy. You've got the 2 kids they've got. I know what that age is like
Mm,
with all their friends and all their appointments and all their goings on. Plus, you've got this career.
yeah.
So, how do you juggle that?
It's really hard. And yeah, it's like the kids need a PA almost. They don't
Yeah.
have one. I don't even have one. It's like stressful.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that's what the mom was meant to be historically.
yeah, yeah,
But when you're off doing documentaries and presenting and working and being an author, you're also
yeah,
the PA?
yeah, 100%. And I hate that kind of like, sometimes when you do interviews, they're like, "Oh, super mom, you're amazing. You can do it all and have it all." And I think, yeah, we can definitely do and have more than sort of previous generations, like my mum's generation. But in some relationships, you're also expected to do the historical stuff as well.
Mhm.
You wouldn't normally hire someone for a job and then ask them to do their colleague's job as well.
Yeah.
It can be really difficult. And then I think if you want to stay married, that's really hard. So far, I've just kind of like chosen to stay married. I've been married 10 years in November and together 13. So definitely things have flipped and changed throughout, which has put a strain or relieved our relationship. We started out like quite traditional, where he worked full time, I worked full time ish, but that always looks different being freelance. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'd be off. Then we had children and we tried to carry on, and then it became really difficult. And I think it was hard for him when I became like more prominent in my career and earning more. And I think we had a lot of shaky times,
Yeah.
and that was hard. And then now we've established ourselves a bit more, and it's better, and it's flipped. And then he did a lot more childcare and home stuff for a period, and then I became more established. And now my daughter's just gone to secondary school, and now he's returned to more work because she's more independent.
Yeah.
So it's never looked the same. And I
Okay.
would say the changing and the evolving is literally every 3 years. And it's never like a natural, like, shall we evolve? It's like awful between us, and we know we have to change.
Okay. So that's your cycle.
Yeah. So we're due like something terrible in about 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense though, like renewing a mortgage with terms and
hmm
everybody grows and not everybody grows the same way at the same time. And you're absolutely right. I do think marriage traditionally and even more so in modern terms benefits men
Yeah.
more than it benefits women.
It's also kind of not our fault. It's actually society's
Hmm.
fault, because we'll be fine and we'll go somewhere, and it'll either be me that feels bad because like I'm not working, and they'll be like, "So what are you up to?" And I'm like in my head, "Nothing. Shut
I
up."
hate that
Like,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or it'll be him. He's really happy with his role at that moment, which involves being hands-on in the house and the children. And they'll be like, "What do you do?" And he's thinking, "Well, nothing." And they'll be like, "Oh." And then
Oh,
we'll feel bad, but we were fine with our arrangement,
yeah.
you know. So I definitely think it's harder for men in those roles, particularly in my job, where we go to lots of things and people base really 90% of your worth on what you're doing.
Hmm.
That's a tough conversation in small talk at an event.
I have a stay-at-home husband
hmm
all the time.
Right.
There's no carpentry
Right. Okay.
popping, like he's a stay and he's fine with it.
That's
But
good.
yeah, he loves it. I have
Yeah.
suggested a different path and he goes, "No, no, no, no. Home."
Well, you think like the salary that would, if you were paying like
Yeah.
nanny, housekeeper, house manager, PA,
Yeah.
there would be like a huge salary, you know.
And I am also paying a nanny and a housekeeper.
Right.
Um, okay. And what is your home life like in terms of your diet and your health? Because you did mention, and we all know, you only have to paint a picture of the teenagers in the bushes
hmm
having their little rural parties. But presumably when you're 13, you bounce back from Alka-Pops
Yeah.
quite quickly. And that all came to a stop. What are you doing now?
So
You'll still have a drink, won't you, Katie?
yes, yeah,
Thank
but
God.
that's been problematic. Like I've had this, I mean, So I grew up born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, right? So to be thin was like deprivation, and you would see all the Slim Fast adverts
Hmm.
and you would see the adverts telling you to skip food and have cereal. And it was just, I think, really normal. Now you see all the archive footage on TikTok of how it was, and you
Yeah.
think, oh, it was really bad, but actually it didn't feel that bad at the time when we were in it. So I definitely have a binge eating kind of thing where I would use food not just for fuel, use it for like celebration, disappointment, all those kind of things. But I think I'm healthy. But yeah, it just depends what time you talk to me that week, that month. Um,
And I mean, again, we grew up at the same time. I think that uh, idea around food is really fun. I like it. I like food for celebration. I don't use it for fuel.
yeah.
If I feel like eating like melted cheese on
Yeah.
turkey one day, I'll do that if I want to have some cake. But weight has never been an issue for you, or
Well,
body image
I think I've been aware
in
of
that.
it, definitely. And, in my previous life, before everything happened to me,
Hmm.
I mean, I was young. And, when you're like 20 and you're like, oh, I want a flat stomach to go out clubbing tonight, so I just won't have lunch. And that would be
Yeah.
a flat stomach. I mean, definitely that's not how easy it is for me now.
No.
And I'm 5'3". So if I gained weight, it would show quickly.
Yeah.
And I think something happened to me like psychologically of, okay, I've lost control of my face. So I would put a lot of effort into my hair or
Yeah.
into my body. So there's definitely like some kind of control issue there. But now I think it's healthier for me where I'm one of those annoying people that I love going running. I love sport. My kids are sporty. So I'm not like sedentary and not enjoying moving. So at
Yeah.
least that kind of happens as a byproduct and it's joyful.
And
You
how
know,
often are you running?
I try and go like most days.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really good.
just because I try and do it before the house wakes up because there's no other time. I can't justify it any other time. And I don't like evening stuff. In the evening, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how much are you sleeping if you're getting up presumably what, 5:30 to run?
Yeah, but I would only run for less than half an hour. And it's just like where I live with my neighbors. It's not like I wouldn't go for like a big hour's run or
Yeah,
something.
but you're
No,
still getting up at 5:30 to run.
just want the alone time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a girlfriend who had 3 kids in quick succession, like I did. And she started running because she just didn't have their bags one day. She thought, I'll go for a run. And she realized she wasn't carrying anyone's shit. And she just felt the freedom of that. And
It
she
is
ran and
liberating.
ran.
Yeah, you don't take any equipment. You just
Yeah.
go and like everyone else is asleep, so no one's ringing you and texting you, like work's not awake yet.
Yeah.
Like it is quite a nice feeling.
Do you find it meditative as well? Do you connect with your Christianity at that time? Do you feel like it puts your mind in a good place? Because I keep hearing about people who work out and they say that it's for the mind as much as the body, and I just can't connect with that.
I could never connect with sitting still and meditating. I tried everything. I tried to get a meditation mentor. I tried to
Mm.
download apps, and I would always go to that like, oh, shopping list, Ocado kind of
Yeah.
place, right? So it would be my like I have to find stillness through movement.
Okay.
But no, not really connecting with anything else. It's actually just a nothing time for me, which I would struggle to find at any other time
Okay.
in the day.
Well, that's good. And nothing time is important.
Yeah.
And then when are we going to bed?
I'd love to go to bed at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like my eldest, she's going to bed around just before then. But usually when I come down, like now I have a dog, I have a 9-month-old puppy.
Yeah.
So I come down and I sort the house out, sort the dog out. And I have a cleaner. I have someone that helps me with the washing 2 days a week. So you're still cleaning for the cleaner and
Yeah.
putting the washing away to do the other washing. And, there's still so much stuff to do in the evening that's boring. And yeah.
Oh, that's no good. So the lifestyle questionnaire, we're going to have very little sleep on that.
I think so, yeah. And also like I'm not when I say I'm healthy, to fall asleep, I scroll on my phone till I drop it and it hits my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and I know all the stuff about why I shouldn't, but I like it. I
I like
enjoy
it
it.
too. That's the best way.
Yeah, yeah.
And then sometimes it'll go, your screen time was 17 hours. And I'm like, oh no, it was just someone's TikTok was heavily monetized all night as it replayed and replayed and replayed on my phone next to me, and I wasn't watching it. That's the best way to fall asleep.
Yeah, and it's that weird thing of like I used to be a smoker, right? And
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I did not want to quit that, but I had to, right?
Do you still think about smoking? Would you like to have one now?
I'm jealous of people that vape.
Yep.
And I went to the Grand Prix in this box that was sponsored by a vape brand.
Oh.
And I tried a vape. the next morning, I was like, where's that vape? Where's that vape? And I was thinking about it straight away. But I would never smoke now because
Okay.
of all my medical stuff, right? And
Yeah.
also because I don't want my kids to vape. And my kids follow everything I do.
That's why you must vape,
Oh, really?
because they're getting to the age where everything you do will start being really uncool.
Oh, yeah. Okay, true.
That's my plan, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to ick them out of the vape.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take up vaping. I don't want to do it either.
Well, yesterday I went to Thorpe Park with my kids and I just like casually linked the arm of my 11-year-old. And she was like, oh my God, this is a mum-free zone. There's
Oh.
loads of boys here. Please don't touch me. And I was like, oh, wow, we're really at that stage. It's kind of
Yeah.
sad, actually.
Just be like, I was helping you out. I'm a sexy wing woman for these boys.
Because I don't think I look like a mum, but she's like, you absolutely do. Please stop.
Even if you were like a 19-year-old mom, she would still treat you that way.
I think so.
I wouldn't take that personally. I would link arms with you at Thorpe Park. So you don't vape, you don't smoke. You would kind of like to.
A little bit,
So-
yeah, low key. But I mean, now my vice is like what? Chocolate, my phone,
Mhm.
alcohol sometimes. But it's been a problematic relationship
Yeah.
where I have abstained before, then I go back to it. Probably just overeating is my vice, yeah.
This dog, I feel like you having a puppy is as stressful as having a newborn, and they cry all night and you have to sleep train them.
Do you have a dog?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 4 dogs
4?
as well as almost 4 children. Yeah, it's not that wise.
Oh my gosh.
But you love them. And I think that in the context of this show, dogs have been shown to be very anti-aging.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my dog really backs me and likes me, and we have common interests together and we share moments together because the dog's up when I'm up, when no one
Yeah.
else is up. We go for walks together. And you're right, it is kind of like having a child, if not a little bit more difficult because there's no level of independence.
Yeah.
You know, like we've toilet trained her, but yeah, it's harder. And now we're like hiring our ex babysitters that the kids have grown out of to babysit the dog.
What's her name?
She's called Sugar.
Ah,
Yeah,
I'm glad you have a dog.
yeah.
And you're so busy, even you're writing children's books,
Yes.
your
yeah.
own books. Let's talk about the books. This
Yeah.
latest one, Still Beautiful, I've got.
Nice.
I'm on this podcast for the gifts alone. And that's about kind of a lot of things that we touched on today. But
Yeah.
how would you describe it to someone who'd like to read your latest offering?
So my first experience of like losing symmetry
Yeah.
and beauty and people telling me that life would be different from here on and that I would lack in so many areas by not being classically beautiful, I definitely found not to be true and the wrong introduction into the world of facial disfigurement. And then I found the same of coming into my 40s of how people were reacting and what that means for a woman. And I was thinking, well, we kind of lie to people and talk about like your 20s being your heyday.
Mhm.
And I think, well, actually, my 20s, and now I realize rightfully so, were a time, the early 20s that I had, obviously they got cut off at 24, were a time for mistakes and experimenting. And I'm so glad that they're not as expensive mistakes made then. And we tell young girls that it's sort of this amazing time. And the people that are looking back on it, it's definitely rose tinted spectacles. Because when I think about the decades after your 20s, as a woman, you become more financially secure. So
Mhm.
actually, financial security gives you a little bit more freedom and liberation. And with that, you can become more confident because you care less, because you've got something to back you up. So I would call like my 40s have been my heyday. Okay, my situation is very unique and it's going to be different to a lot of other women, but I've never been so certain and secure. And I don't think I would have had that security and certainty in my 20s, even if
No.
that hadn't happened to me, you know? So to say that women, you know, as Andrew Tate says, lose their value as they get older. I contribute way more to society and to my immediate family and friends in my 40s than I could have ever dreamed of in my 20s. So I think we do women a disservice by telling them the opposite and possibly push them into doing certain things through this panic of that we're losing this status or value or power or whatever it is they tell us. So
Yeah.
the book kind of became a little bit self-help, a little bit autobiographical, some experts in there as well, but just really honest about that experience. And like the women I'm around now are my age and older, and they're so aspirational, they're so
Mhm.
powerful, and they're so confident. And I wanted it to be honest because look, even facial disfigurement or not, I still have Botox, right?
Mhm.
I still want to dress what we see as young and look young and feel young. And we shouldn't persecute people for feeling like that. The whole of society is set up like that.
Yeah.
So to go against that grain is incredibly difficult. And it's true that if you maintain yourself, more doors stay open. So I didn't want it to be a book about like embrace the wrinkles and the grey because that's not authentic to how I
No.
live or feel. And I think if we criticize women for feeling opposite to that, we're still kind of like policing their appearance and how they should feel.
It is gaslighting. It's pretending that we don't live in the society that we live in.
Mm.
I'm glad you mentioned Andrew Tate. He is an important philosopher.
Mm.
But yeah, it's such like a pedo weird gaze to put on the world to be like, you peak
Yeah.
at 21 when your frontal lobe is still developing. You don't have any currency in a man's world. You don't have your education yet, and you don't have power. You don't have finances to back you. And I think as much as you and I are from quite a toxic generation, we're so lucky to also be part of this generation that we advocated for ourselves.
Mhm.
And we are so powerful and beautiful in our 40s. We don't apologize for that. You're seeing older women on television now, older women cast for roles
Mhm.
now, older women unapologetically having the aesthetic that they want to have now,
Yeah.
talking about surgery. Like our grandmothers would lie about dyeing their hair.
I know. Yeah.
And
It's strange, isn't it?
yeah.
There was so much shame around wanting to look good or be a better version or needing help or extras.
Mhm.
And I think then what happened is there's this internalized misogyny for women as well, where we criticize other women. It's
Yeah.
not actually from men. And I think me turning 40, the biggest reaction was from other women
Mhm.
towards me about how I felt about that and what it meant, and it being this kind of death sentence. And I have to check myself as well and think, actually, be careful. Like, is that internalized misogyny? Is that learnt behavior? Is it a little bit of jealousy? I think it's
Mhm.
important to reflect on that. And I think whenever you meet people that have been in therapy, usually those people are able to do that and reflect like that, I think.
Yeah. Well, I love that. There's a shamelessness about still beautiful,
Mm.
especially the audacity of a 40-year-old woman to be like, I am the most beautiful. And I think related to how a lot of us were introduced to you, what happened to you,
Mm.
I think is meant to be shameful. It's meant, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To take away your autonomy and to take away how you connect with the world, that interface.
Yeah.
And it feels, like you really have worked through all that trauma really beautifully. You feel,
If you look at the core of an acid attack,
mhm,
it is I will strip you
yeah,
of your main communication point to the world, and I will make you feel so ashamed that you opt out of society. So rather than murder you, I'll leave you, shell of your former self. And I think maybe in certain decades and centuries and cultures that would be achieved. But I just think we live in a different time now
yeah.
where actually that's not going to be the outcome of that happening.
Not with you around, Katie. I still don't trust men. I appreciate that you're making these documentaries with killer women, but it's going to take a lot of them to get me back on side. Are you ready to find out your biological age?
I don't feel any better about it. I'm still really nervous
I think,
because
I was worried because you started saying, oh, I've got this busy life and the school run and the kids and then running. Even sometimes if you do too much athletics, it's not good.
yeah.
And then you had the wild teens. But I just feel like you are so open and healed and helpful. I think it's going to be good. What do you think? Like, really?
So I'm going to be 42 in a few weeks. I'm just hoping for like a biological age of in my 30s. Like
Yeah.
then I'll just leave the pod like blessed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's invite Dr. Nicola Conlon, our resident science woman. She's a very serious figure on the show. She and I fall out sometimes. We are joined now by Dr. Nicola Conlon, a science woman, and she can interpret. I've gone back to calling you a science woman.
It's all right.
I did
like that.
scientist for a while, and then I was
Nice.
like, do you know, I like science woman.
Nice. Okay.
Nicola is a scientist who can interpret these results. Okay. Are you ready?
I guess so. I have to be, right?
Yeah. We've spoken about hedonism of the teens, trauma, marriage,
Mhm.
so more trauma, recovery, kids. Katie Piper, your result is 22.
I was going to
Years
swear. Are you
old.
serious?
I've never heard you swear. 19 years younger than your biological age.
I'm absolutely shook.
Very good.
That's great.
Yeah.
This has been a great day for me. I'm so happy.
Is that the Christianity, Nicola, science-wise?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good result, and despite the trauma and the surgeries, and which are all things that we definitely do know push up biological age, like whatever you're doing now, the multiple things, whether it's a lifestyle, the faith, things like that, have all really took it the opposite way.
Wow. I mean, I'm an optimistic person, but I wouldn't have been this optimistic. I mean,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
It's
mean,
very young.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even, I was looking into some of the studies, and there was actually a study that came out just this year, which specifically looked at what having a burn injury,
Mhm.
which essentially yours was a chemical burn,
Yeah.
what it does to biological age. And it showed that on average, people that had some sort of severe burn were 14 years older.
It's funny you say that
Mhm.
because one of the things that came out of the injury when I was like a few years down in the recovery was I was so determined for it to not make me unwell for any longer than it had to. And I wasn't really a runner before. And I set myself this target of like, I need to start doing half marathons, and I could use it as a fundraising thing for my charity. And I
Yeah.
became a person I wasn't before. And I think about it now, I don't know if I ever would have become her if that hadn't happened to me.
Mm.
And I did get a bit obsessed with like, this can't physically kill me earlier than I would have naturally gone,
Yeah.
and I think it became a bit of a thing for me. Definitely when I was single and had no kids and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think if we'd gone back in time and measured it then, I think we definitely would have saw some spikes. But again, it shows how biological age, the age you are on the inside, is something that moves around, which, we see a lot on the show.
Yeah.
People can be higher, they can be lower. It can go backwards, it can go forwards, depending on your current state that your body is in at that time, whether that's pro-inflammatory or it's not. But looking at your questionnaire, your lifestyle questionnaire, I know you were saying maybe you don't sleep as well as you should, but
Yeah.
it did look really good. Like
Oh,
it
okay.
did.
I was
I was
surprised.
looking through it and I was like, no, everything that you're kind of ticking all the right boxes. And I was also just listening in the back, and I think you sort of said something about you were worried that maybe moving towards, your fertility decline and things in menopause.
Yeah.
Now, again, we can see in the results, usually with a woman, if they are moving towards that, and there was no sign.
I
No
tried to have
sign
another
of
baby for 2.5
perimenopause.
years.
Yeah. So
Should I just carry on?
maybe.
Well, I can't now 'cause I got
mean,
the
I don't give
dog.
fertility advice, but from what we can see is there's usually a very clear it's like we look at different biomarkers, and if a woman is going towards perimenopause or menopause, there's a very clear signature that we
Yeah.
can see, and then usually that will push the biological age up. So menopause massively impacts a woman's biological age in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So just in that phase of going from perimenopause to menopause in a period of 6 months, a woman's biological age will increase by around 9 years in
Oh,
6 months.
wow.
So again, no sign of that in you. You're massively younger.
So me and my husband, right, we have this joke where we call each other like dumb and dumber, right? Because we're not very academic, and together we make some quite big mistakes in life, but we're kind of okay with it because we're just so thick together, right? But
Okay.
we're very enthusiastic people, very
Yeah.
motivated, and that's our kind of school of life qualification. And when we were trying for the third baby, after like 2 years, this is so shameful. We'd been, it wasn't like fun sex. It
The
was
wrong
like
hole.
no, not the wrong hole.
Oh,
Worse,
I've done
worse.
that. Yeah.
We had those apps where you fill out the dates and everything. And we were like, do you think we filled out the dates wrong? And we got
Oh.
ovulation window wrong. And we've just been having sex 4 days in a row for the wrong 4 days every single month for 2 years.
Maybe.
So then after 2 years, we were just like, let's just get a dog. So we just
Well,
got the wrong
listen,
dates in the app.
I'm 42. Watch out. Watch out. You are vulnerable to being impregnated by this man at any time.
I
But-
couldn't handle it now we've got the dog.
No.
I just, no.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, and I've changed all my underwear. I've like checked out. So I turned my garage into a gym.
It's settled then.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, one thing that you did say, I mean, I can't comment on the fertility side of it, but one thing that you did just say there about being optimistic
Yeah.
and optimism, and that is definitely known to positively impact how well you will age, having a
Okay.
youthful, optimistic outlook on life. So the fact that you and your husband both kind of have that youthful energy is a good thing.
Yeah.
And also just wanted to touch a little bit about what you were speaking to Catherine about faith.
Oh, okay.
Because again, this is something where there's now a lot more research being put into it in relation to, things like how it impacts our health, but also there's now been some studies with biological age.
Right.
And it was shown that if people who have a religion or follow some sort of religion, it doesn't matter what the religion is, or even if it isn't a religion at all, it's just being spiritual or having some sort of spiritual experience or feeling that, there's something higher, a
Because you feel
higher
less
being.
hopeless, do you think?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
it does correlate with a lower biological age.
So God keeps me young.
Yeah,
That's true
and the
because
science,
it's
there's
a
science
belief
behind
as
that.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's as well looking at it when you said a lot of people will. You said it's a bit cliche. People turn
Mm.
into faith when they've had some sort of trauma, but again, having that something to kind of reframe a really negative situation into like instead of like, why is this happening to me, reframing it in a way that you can link a more positive emotion with it, which is something that's
Yeah.
really difficult. But having faith, or even just believing that something
It
higher
gives you
than all of us
closure
is
as well.
in control, it does.
Yeah.
So, and again, anything that can reframe something in a more positive emotion, we know will reduce the stress of the situation,
Yeah.
which in turn will lower biological age, because we know inflammation is incredibly pro-aging.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of theory behind why it is. And also I think it links with purpose as well.
Oh, definitely for
You
me.
know,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, having a faith or a belief in something greater is a way to have purpose in life if you feel a bit lost.
If you're searching for big, like philosophical questions about the meaning of life, why we're all here, why we're going through the mundane day to day, I feel like that answers that for you.
Yeah.
And stops you wondering so much. You don't need to, because you just trust in something else. Do you know
Yeah.
what's so funny? When I had to do the blood test, even my blood was like really dark. And I was like, even my blood looks really old now. It's not,
Oh,
it's not
no.
red. I was like, maybe that's a sign that I'm old. That, yeah.
No. And even the
Yeah.
purpose through your charity
Yeah.
and your advocacy
Yeah.
and writing all these books. I mean, how many books have you got now total?
I think it's 16
Yeah.
now
I mean, you're
with the kids' books.
always
Yeah.
speaking to people and
Yeah.
reaching out. Like, you could very well have dealt with this period in your life and then moved on, but you're always finding new ways to really reach out and connect with people.
Yeah, I do find the connection because I don't have a career of, like being an actress, a singer. It's like quite a varied thing of, being in the public eye as originally like a news story, a victim,
Mm.
and then now all these different paths. It connects me with lots of different types of people. It's not one type of colleague or somebody that I be with on a day-to-day basis, which I think helps me feel like more broad in my mind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still shocked.
Yeah.
Does this mean I can just vape and it doesn't matter?
No.
Yes.
No.
But what does it mean for me? Like,
This is
what do
where we
I do
fall
with
out.
this? Like, what do I do with this information? Like, can I just be reckless with it? Like, it's a positive thing, right? Like, does it mean I'm going to live till like 100?
Yeah.
Great.
What it means is having a lower biological age means that you are less likely to suffer from age-related illnesses at a young age.
Okay,
So
that's
if your
good.
biological age was higher, it would be like, okay, you're kind of on a path to basically being out of what we call your health span, which
Yeah.
is where you're unable to live a life where you're independent, can do what you want,
Yeah.
because you're suffering with multiple chronic
But I do feel like that is
age-related
God.
diseases.
Like, he gave me all that really young, where I wasn't
Yeah.
independent and people had to help me and I had to move back home. And I think, again, it became my obsession of like, most young people don't know what it's like not to be able to use a commode on your own.
Yeah.
And I do, and most young people don't know what it's like where you physically are capacitated, you can't work. You just wouldn't think about that in your 20s. So because I know all that and I thought about all that, all of my choices decades later have been influenced by that, because I do not want to go to that in 60s and 70s. Like, I at least want that to be, if I live long enough, in my sort of 90s or never.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just to be like one of those people that she just went to bed and fell asleep.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like, that
yeah.
would be so lovely,
Yeah.
you know. I feel like I deserve that ending
Yeah.
because I didn't have that kind of prime time, you know.
So what then is the secret? Because you say that obviously you had to have multiple surgeries and there is a knock-on effect, anesthetics and these
Yeah.
medications, and you still have surgeries. So are you doing hyperbaric oxygen chambers? Did you take supplements, or how are you?
No, I do take supplements. I do all the kind of like the normal magnesium, zinc, collagen, things like that. My husband's a good cook, so I don't eat processed food. Like he cooks fresh every day. I don't take drugs. I don't smoke. I'm mindful of alcohol, but I do drink. I'm always outdoors. Like I'm
Yeah.
always doing
Okay.
10 to 20,000 steps a day. The
Oh.
dog and the kids are active. And I do think the biggest part for me that I'm the most consistent in is the psychology, the mindset side of it. Takes a lot to bother me. I don't worry about what other people think of me. I do kind of live my life. It sounds almost selfish in a way, but for me in that sense, like, and I do like people and I like connecting with them because I do think something could happen today and everything could change for us all. And I don't want to have not made the most of it, you know? And I always think, in a cheesy way, I always think that all the time.
Yeah.
It is a gift in a way
is,
to have
definitely.
that context so young to understand how important your life is and what matters and what doesn't. And I bet you have not spent any time focusing on the stuff that a lot of people get lost in. It doesn't matter.
I've skipped that and I don't live in any fear of all these immediate things. I just go out and just do it, you know? Because what's the worst that could happen? It's already happened.
And I think everything that you've just said is exactly why your biological age is so young. So it shows, I think, in your case, how doing all the right things, having all the right mindset can really support that innate resilience that you have in your body. Your body has this amazing capacity to be able to regenerate, heal, but it also relies on a little bit of help from ourselves, you know.
It's reassuring though, isn't it?
Yeah,
For
so
anyone,
everything you're
like-
doing, it's
Yeah.
really, your body is like thanking you for it, and it's repaying you with this wonderfully low biological age. It's really happy on the inside.
I've got to text my husband. Like, he has no idea he's married to a 22-year-old. Like,
Just
can you
text him.
imagine? Yeah.
I found out about the 22-year-old.
Yeah.
You're in big trouble when I get home. Bum, bum, bum. Third baby.
Oh my God. Don't. Can you imagine?
Yes, I can.
I
I'm
mean-
living that nightmare now. Katie, I guess my final question was just going to be, will this change how you live your life? But I suppose not unless you go off the rails.
Well, no, I think it's actually changed it in the opposite way, where actually I need to carry this on because
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
I never want to slack or get complacent because this is really important. I really, like, now I have children, like my parents are really good grandparents, and I would love them to be here long enough to know what my kids do for a living. You know, and that's still quite a while away, and they have their various ailments and diseases and stuff. So it's now about like, I really want to support my daughter. Like, I've seen what it's like to have a career, have a family. I want to be my kids' au pair and help them, you know. So I have to keep going and not take this as like, oh, it's fine then, because now I realize it works, but you have to stay consistent,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's like a confirmation. It's good to know sometimes that because you are going the extra mile, trying to fit the exercise in, trying to
Yeah.
eat well in amongst everything else that's going on. Sometimes it is a bit like, oh, it's really worth it.
Yeah.
But this shows it absolutely is.
It's probably, I'm probably going to do it like an Iron Woman now. It's probably
No,
accelerated.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Too much
Yeah,
athletics
it's all about
sometimes
balance.
causes inflammation.
Oh,
We have
really?
learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to Katie Piper for joining us on What's My Age Again. Her memoir, Still Beautiful, her honest and raw account of her life up to 40, is all about what it means to age well in a world where women are made to feel invisible. The privilege of living and aging and cultivating confidence. Thank you so much for joining us on What's My Age Again. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.